We start here with our focus this morning. Now, South Africa is unlikely to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goal for water by 2030. And this is according to President Cyril Ramaphosa, who addressed the UN back in September. But the country is already water scarce, and the International Panel on Climate Change predicts that droughts will increase across southern Africa in the next decade. Now, added to that is a lack of investment in water infrastructure. Let's cross now to Leleti Maluleke from Good Governance Africa, who joins me to discuss this even further. Leleti, thank you so much for your time and a very warm good morning. I mean, the picture is not looking good in as far as water security is concerned in South Africa, or at least southern Africa. Take me through what the data is telling us.
Good morning and good morning to your viewers. The data shows that South Africa has been experiencing low levels of annual rainfall, and there is increased temperatures of high temperatures that have increased since 2015. What the IPCC is clear in is that climate change has induced water cycles, and drought will continue to increase across Southern Africa over the next decade. What we're experiencing right now is South Africa is being ranked as one of the driest countries in the world. It ranks 29 out of 193, and this is expected to continue with the average rainfall that we're receiving.
I mean, we also heard President Cyril Ramaphosa conceding as well that South Africa is unlikely, Leleti, to reach the UN Sustainable Development Goal for water by 2030. What does it mean in terms of the work that still needs to be done in the country to reach that goal?
There's a lot of work that needs to be done across the province and national as a whole. We need to address the developmental challenges that we're still having. There's a lot of investment and technology transfer that is required, and there's a lack of capacity building across provinces, and we have seen this in key areas such as water, energy, agriculture, and health. So there is definitely a need to start building our capacity as a country, and there's a need for also to invest in water infrastructure and the technology that will enable us to not face these water shortages that we have.
What are some of the challenges do you think, though, we'll have to maneuver as a country to achieve the goal? I mean, if we're looking at Hammanskraal, for example, Leleti, I'm sure you would know, and we would have all seen in the news, issues around corruption in terms of procurement, some of the water plants that have to be maintained, the budget that's been set aside, not going to where it's meant to be redirected to. But also from where you're looking, what are the challenges that we definitely are faced with ahead of achieving that goal?
I mean, the main challenge that we can also state right now is the current load shedding that we have. There's an impact of load shedding that it has on our water pumps and our water pump system that is not able to get water to the system that we needed to do. But the main thing that we are facing right now is governance failures. As we've seen, as you mentioned, with the cholera outbreak in Hammanskraal, this was an issue of governance failure. You know, the outbreak that results, as many people can say, it resulted as pollution, but also it's a lack of oversight from the Department of Water and Sanitation. You know, there's a lack of sewage treatment. There's a lack of insufficient capacity to deal with the waste that is being received. Pollution is a key driver to what we face as a country. But the main thing that I will go back to is that there's a lack of good governance across the department, across the provinces. And this is what we need to now start looking at. We need to start looking at our dams compliant? Is there anybody who's doing any sort of monitoring? Is there anybody who's taking into consideration our poor and critical water supply systems? So it all goes back to the lack of monitoring that there is and the lack of capacity.
And when there's lack of good governance, excuse the pun, then it's the residents, right, Leleti, who suffer. It's South Africans who bear the brunt. Let's talk about some of the negative impacts that water scarcity, lack of, water infrastructure maintenance has had on locals.
Locals definitely suffer the most. We have seen with the case of Guyana, for example, they've been waiting for water for over decades now, but there has not been any water. This means that they have to, for themselves, find water. And Guyana is a place that is not developed as the rest of the country. So there is no dam that they can go fetch water from. There is no river because of the drought that they experience. So they end up finding their own source of water through boreholes. But at the same time, not everybody can afford these boreholes, which means that some people end up now buying water or even use dirty water for their domestic use. So there's a huge impact. This has a huge impact on our local population, as well as the ability to do certain stuff such as agriculture. A lot of our communities depend on agriculture for for sustainability as well as a source of income. However, this has been hampered because of the current water shortages and the drought that we're experiencing.
And you can agree with me that at certain times, tragic times, it could even turn fatal for South Africans. But Leleti, thank you so much for joining me. Leleti Maluleke from, of course, Good Governance, just placing the spotlight on how our water crisis has worsened in South Africa. We've also heard from Cyril Ramaphosa, the President of the Republic of South Africa, conceding that it seems like South Africa is unlikely to reach the UN Sustainable Development Goal with regards to water by at least 2030, because once again, according to the IPP on climate change, it's predicting that drought will increase across southern Africa in the next decade. So much that we need to do with water. Hence, we're having this focus today.